The wind that morning carried more than salt from the sea. It carried warnings. I stood on the bow of my small boat, hands in my coat pockets, watching the pale outline of my island slowly emerge through the morning fog. To most people, it looked like nothing, a smear of green lost between the cliffs, barely big enough to show up on maps. But I knew better. That island was my sanctuary, my legacy. My family's name wasn't carved in gold on any welcome sign, but it was written deep in the roots of those trees. My grandfather left it to me before he died, with a single warning I never forgot. It only takes one person who thinks they're in charge to try and take everything. I didn't expect that person to show up wearing pearls, sunglasses, and a clipboard, but that's exactly what she did. Loretta Sharp, or as the neighborhood called her, HOA Karen, had taken one glance at my island during a yacht tour, decided it was abandoned, and within days started claiming it as community property. She cut through my dock lock, put up her signs, sent HOA violation letters via drone. She even announced a public beach day on my land. To the world, she was just another overbearing HOA officer with a power complex. But to me, she was the match. And my silence? That was the gasoline. What she didn't know, what no one knew, was that I wasn't just the quiet guy who lived off the coast. I owned more than the island. I owned the land her HOA office was sitting on, the legal firm handling her filings, and the security company monitoring her drone activity. I let her climb higher, louder, bolder, and then I pulled the ground out from under her. This isn't a story about anger. It's about justice. It's about watching someone steal what isn't theirs and showing them, not through rage, but through strategy, exactly who they messed with. Welcome to the real story of how HOA Karen took over my island, and why that was the last mistake she ever made. If you're enjoying this story already, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and click the bell icon so you're the first to know when the next juicy episode drops. The revenge, the reveal, the helicopters, it all starts now. Let's dive in. The ocean was calm that morning, a gentle breeze sweeping through the narrow channel that separated the mainland from the tiny, nearly invisible island tucked between the coastal cliffs. From a distance, it looked like just another forgotten patch of wild land, swallowed by sea mist and palm trees, sitting silently in the shadows of an elite neighborhood's towering villas. But that wasn't just any island. It belonged to me. To most people in town, it was an untouched, abandoned spot with no official owner. Even GPS maps barely registered it. But I knew better. The island had been in my family for decades, passed down quietly from my grandfather, a man who believed in legacy without noise. When he gave it to me, I was told only two things: protect its silence, and never underestimate how loud fools can be. I never forgot that. I rarely visited the island in broad daylight. I preferred to keep it private, natural, untouched. I had it surveyed and registered properly, legally mine, under a shell company, quietly maintained by a discreet caretaker who came once a week. No social media posts, no docs on public record, just a boat, a locked gate, and a peaceful grove of trees. It was my retreat from the noise of the world. But peace, I've learned, is always temporary in places where egos live unchecked. One Thursday afternoon, my caretaker called me. He sounded uneasy. "Sir," he said, "there's a new sign on the island." "A sign?" "Yes, a metal post. It says, 'Property of Seabreeze Hills HOA, Protected Zone.'" I paused. The Seabreeze Hills HOA was infamous around here, a self-important association of wealthy homeowners who believed their opinions were law. I knew of them. I had ignored them, until now. Curious, I took a boat that evening and arrived just after sunset. Sure enough, the caretaker was right. A glossy blue and white sign was planted boldly. Yet the entrance to my island, right beside the locked dock gate, which someone had cut open and replaced with their own padlock. Below the sign was a smaller metal plate. "Violators will be fined. HOA Zone 17A." I stood there, wind rustling the trees, heart calm, but mind sharp. Someone had made a very bold mistake. I didn't rage. I didn't call anyone. I took photos. Then I smiled. Let them dig their hole deeper, I thought. This wasn't just going to be a correction. It was going to be a lesson. Back in town the next morning, I wore my most casual clothes and drove past the Seabreeze Hills Community Center. It sat at the edge of a man-made lake, all glass and granite, and a giant HOA flag flapping over the entrance like they were their own nation. That's where I saw her, Loretta Sharp, the president of the HOA. They called her Karen behind her back, and honestly, it was generous. She was the type who'd stop kids from riding bikes on sidewalks, demand fences be repainted if the color faded by half a shade, and once tried to fine a homeowner for planting unapproved lavender. Petty, obsessed with power, and blind to boundaries. And now, she thought she owned my island. She had no idea what she had just touched. The next time I returned to the island, it wasn't alone. I brought along a friend, Lena, a lawyer from my private land rights firm. She wasn't just any lawyer. She was a quiet legal shark, someone who'd helped me secure several confidential acquisitions over the years. I'd shown her the photos of the sign and the tampered dock. She didn't laugh. She just said, "Let them go further. The deeper the roots of arrogance, the easier it is to pull the whole thing out." As we stepped onto the island, something new caught our eyes. Not just the sign or the replaced lock. Now, there was a folding table, plastic chairs, and even a trash can marked with the HOA logo. Someone had started setting up shop. Lena pulled out her phone and began recording everything. Unauthorized access, illegal occupation, branding on private property. This is good. What do you think she's planning? I asked. Lena squinted at the table. This isn't just a grab. This is a claim. She's trying to make this look like a shared-use community space. Once she gets the HOA board to vote on it, she'll file papers to annex the island. Can she? Legally? Not a chance. But in the HOA world, perception is everything. She can stir up noise, push it through her pet committee, and file just enough paperwork to create a fight. A fight you'd have to clean up. That explained why she'd moved so fast. And it explained what happened next. Within days, HOA newsletters started circulating in nearby neighborhoods, full of excitement about Seabreeze Hills' newest recreational expansion. There were phrases like community nature space, protected coastal point, and soon-to-be-renovated historic island retreat. Not a single word about private ownership, not a single clue that they were trespassing. Worse still, they included a picture of my island taken from the air. I didn't need to ask how they, got it. A drone, probably the same one now buzzing over my island at random hours. The HOA had started surveillance flights. They thought I was asleep. But now, I was wide awake. A week passed. I let the silence stretch. And that's when Loretta, or Karen, depending on whom you asked, crossed the line from annoying to aggressive. One morning, I got a call from a friend in the mayor's office. "Did you give the HOA permission to throw a public event on your island?" My stomach didn't even tighten. I just smiled. "What kind of event?" I asked. "An HOA family beach day, bounce houses, grilled seafood, music. They got permits for tents, catering, and public safety, but they submitted it under the claim that the land belongs to the HOA." I could hear the awkward pause on the line. He knew something was off. "They also filed for a temporary dock extension," he added. "And someone filed a complaint about squatters refusing to leave. Was that meant for you?" Now it was clear. Karen had built her narrative. In her mind, the island was unclaimed. The mystery man, me, was just someone camping there or using it illegally. And the HOA, they were swooping in to rescue it for the good of the community. I chuckled softly and thanked my friend. Then I made a call to another friend, at Falcon Security, my private protection company. "Prepare the island," I told them. "Let her party happen. We'll give her the spotlight." "And then, sir?" I stared out the window at the sea. "Then, we take the whole stage from under her feet." The week leading up to the HOA's so-called Family Beach Day was a parade of absurdity. First came the banners. Mass-printed HOA logo-branded flags began appearing in nearby neighborhoods with bold gold letters. "Seabreeze Island Celebration, a community victory." The gall of it nearly made me laugh. According to them, the HOA had reclaimed a forgotten piece of coastal heritage and was now generously sharing it with the people. I received the flyers in my own mailbox, addressed to Seabreeze residents and guests. The irony was thick. I lived just outside the HOA boundary lines, in a private compound that they couldn't touch. Still, they had the nerve to invite me to a party on my island, claiming it as their own. Karen even went on a local radio station declaring, "We discovered a neglected island, littered with debris and unclaimed for years. The HOA took swift action to clean it, protect it, and return it to the community it belongs to." Her voice was sugary sweet, dripping with manufactured sincerity. She ended the segment with, "We don't know who the old squatter was, but he's no longer welcome on Seabreeze Island." No longer welcome? She was already planning her fantasy ending, probably hoping to get her name on a plaque or even run for town council next year. This party was her platform, and that made it the perfect trap. 3 days before the event, I quietly arrived at the island again, this time with my Falcon security team. They wore plain clothes and moved like shadows. No one noticed their presence, and that's exactly how I wanted it. We installed high-resolution cameras in the trees, sensors along the beach, and a silent entry detection grid near the dock. Every visitor who set foot would be logged, tracked, and quietly filmed. Then we prepared the stage. We didn't stop the party. That would be too easy, and not nearly as satisfying. No, we made sure everything Karen planned would go off without a hitch. Let her believe she'd won. Let her gather her guests, call the press, raise her wine glass. The more she climbed, the farther she'd fall. The morning of the party arrived like any other. Quiet mist on the water, the sound of gulls overhead, and the distant buzz of boats arriving at the shore. From the mainland, HOA members began launching rafts and canoes toward the island. Some hired private boats. Others came in with motorized dinghies decorated with streamers. At the dock, someone had put up a balloon arch, a large banner stretched across the palm trees. "Welcome to Seabreeze Hoa Island." The nerve. By 11 a.m., the island was crawling with HOA members. Lawn chairs, picnic blankets, catered buffets, even a small stage with portable speakers playing smooth jazz. Kids ran on the beach, parents mingled with wine glasses, and at the center of it all stood Karen. She wore a wide-brimmed sun hat, HOA pin on her lapel, and a dress that screamed "elected official." She posed for photos, shook hands, and gave a short speech on how the HOA had transformed this forgotten patch of land into a symbol of community strength. Someone even tried to plant a new signpost near the shoreline stating, "Donated by the Seabreeze HOA, for all families to enjoy." I made sure it was captured in high resolution. Then I gave the signal. The sound of rotor blades began faintly. So subtle, some guests thought it was just wind. But within moments, the noise grew louder, and a shadow passed over the party. Two black helicopters appeared over the ocean, hovering low, stable, and unmistakably official-looking. They circled once, slow and deliberate. Panic rippled through the crowd. Karen looked up, shielding her eyes, confused. Then the first helicopter gently touched down at the open center of the Oz land, where Karen had just given her speech. The second hovered nearby. Doors opened. Out stepped my Falcon security team, now in full tactical dress, black uniforms, badges visible, headsets in place. They looked professional, legal, powerful. And then I stepped out. No suit, no tie, just a clean black shirt, dark sunglasses, and a calm expression. People turned, cameras clicked, Karen's face drained of color. I didn't speak right away. I just stood, letting the silence fall. Then I nodded to one of my lawyers, who stepped forward with a binder in hand. "Good afternoon," she said into a small microphone. "On behalf of the legal owners of this property, including full deeded ownership under the sovereign authority of the state of California, we are here to inform all parties that this is private land." She turned toward Karen. "You are trespassing." Karen laughed nervously. "This land was unclaimed. We submitted paperwork. We filed—" My lawyer held up a thick folder. "You filed fraudulent documents with the town. You misrepresented property ownership, redirected HOA funds, and hosted an illegal public event on private land." You are in violation of 6 statutes, not counting the tampering of dock property and private surveillance zones. A second lawyer added, by the way, your HOA building, it now belongs to our client, as of this morning. Dead silence. Then a single child whispered, Mom, is that man the owner? Yes, he was. And he wasn't done yet. Karen's face flickered between shades of red and pale white, like a faulty light bulb. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Behind her, a crowd of HOA members stared, their picnic plates frozen in midair, wine glasses forgotten in trembling hands. No one had expected this. Certainly not her. I stepped forward at last, taking my time, walking calmly past folding chairs and fruit platters, until I stood just a few feet from her. She tried to smile, that awful, brittle kind of smile that people wear when they're caught and think charm can still save them. There must be some misunderstanding, she stammered. This land was, we were told it was abandoned. I spoke my first words of the day. It wasn't. She blinked. It's been registered under a land trust for over 20 years, I continued, my voice quiet but clear. I've owned it legally since I inherited it from my grandfather. Your officers cut through my gate. You planted false signage. You hosted unauthorized gatherings. And you lied, again and again, to your own board and the town. The crowd around us shifted uneasily. Whispers turned into audible gasps. One man, probably another board member, muttered under his breath, She said it was vacant. My lawyer stepped forward again, handing a printed document to Karen. This is a cease and desist notice for trespassing and unlawful possession. You have 5 minutes to vacate the property. Law enforcement has been informed, and should you refuse, arrests will be made under California Penal Code. Karen took the paper but didn't look at it. Her eyes were locked on me. Who are you? She asked, her voice sharp and shaky. I smiled faintly. Just someone who doesn't like bullies. Then I reached into my back pocket and pulled out a small black box. I pressed a button, and a large projector screen, hidden in the trees, powered up with a beep. A crisp aerial video began to play. It showed Karen, just days ago, arriving at the island on a speedboat with 2 men. They were cutting the lock at the dock, then planting the new sign, then unloading folding tables, all of it in clear, high definition. Then came audio clips, her voice laughing. No one's going to challenge us. This place is practically invisible. We'll make it ours, and if someone shows up, we'll just call them squatters and push them out. People started recording with their phones. Even HOA board members. Her own allies were stepping back, visibly horrified. One woman took off her HOA pin and dropped it in the sand. Karen's hands trembled. You can't do this, she whispered. This is harassment. This is entrapment. No, Lena replied. This is justice. And then, right on cue, the town sheriff's boat pulled up to the dock. 15 minutes later, the Seabreeze HOA Island Family Day was no more. Parents gathered their children. Volunteers packed up the buffet tables. The jazz music cut off mid-track. And Karen, she was escorted, not handcuffed, but close, to the sheriff's deputy waiting at the shoreline, while the crowd parted around her like she was radioactive. But I wasn't done yet. As the last of the guests cleared the island, I stepped onto the portable stage Karen had set up. The mic was still active. I looked out at the few remaining board members, press crew, and my team. I'm not here to humiliate anyone, I said. I'm here to remind people that power doesn't make you right. The truth does. I paused, letting that settle. This island was never abandoned. It was never yours to claim. But rather than take legal action, I've chosen to offer something else. People leaned in. I smiled again. As of today, this island will become the Seabreeze Environmental Education Reserve, a nonprofit nature sanctuary for school children, science groups, and local families, managed by my foundation, open to the public, legally, respectfully. Cheers erupted. Even some former HOA members clapped. And for those who think rules only apply to others, I added, my eyes briefly meeting Karen's as she was led down the dock, consider this your reminder. Someone's always watching, and sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one who owns the land you're standing on. In the days that followed, the fallout spread like wildfire. Local news stations ran headlines like, HOA Scandal, President Caught Illegally Seizing Private Island. Karen of the Coast Tries to Claim Land, Gets Owned by Silent Billionaire. Clips from the event, especially the moment the helicopters landed and Karen's stunned face hit the big screen, went viral online. Social media dubbed it at Island Justice. The Seabreeze Hills HOA, once a smug little empire of perfection-obsessed elites, was in shambles. 3 board members resigned immediately. Sponsors pulled out. Lawyers came crawling out of the woodwork. And Karen? She lawyered up, but it was too late. The town filed charges of fraud and illegal occupation. Civil suits from HOA members began piling in. Apparently, she had diverted over $120,000 of HOA funds for the event, the signs, the party rental equipment, all under the justification of community beautification. And with my legal team providing time-stamped footage and documentation, her defense had more holes than a broken dock. Still, I didn't gloat. I simply returned to my island one morning, barefoot, coffee in hand, and watched as contractors quietly removed every last trace of HOA graffiti, fencing, and trash. The balloon arch was long gone. The signpost had been pulled out and snapped in two. The air felt clean again. The island was mine again, fully, peacefully, quietly mine. But I wasn't done building something better. 1 week later, I hosted my own gathering, this time with real permits, invited guests, and sincere intentions. There were no HOA banners, no tacky jazz, just school kids from nearby towns, nature researchers, and local teachers. We set up small tents with microscopes, nature walks, and a marine biology exhibit along the shoreline. A girl pointed at a crab crawling across a tide pool and squealed with excitement. Her mother, a single parent from a school that rarely got field trips, thanked me with tears in her eyes. This is the first time she's ever seen the ocean up close. I smiled. It won't be the last. That eve, kneeling back at my home, Lena handed me a folder and grinned. Thought you'd enjoy this, she said. Inside were copies of all the legal documents confirming the full transfer of the HOA's headquarters building to me. The property now sat under one of my shell companies. The same building where Karen once ruled like a queen was now empty. What do you want to do with it? Lena asked. I sipped my tea. Let's convert it into a legal resource center, pro bono. Offer free legal advice to homeowners and tenants who've been bullied by corrupt HOAs. Maybe even name it after my grandfather. Lena laughed. That's poetic. No, I said, smiling faintly. That's legacy. The funny thing was, I never wanted to be the center of attention. I never wanted revenge. I only wanted peace. But sometimes, the world tries to poke a sleeping lion, and when it does, the lion doesn't roar. He rises quietly. He walks calmly. And then, he owns the jungle. Word of the island incident didn't just ripple through the town. It made waves across the entire region. OAs in nearby neighborhoods began holding emergency meetings. Board members reviewed land ownership procedures. Town clerks double-checked zoning maps. Suddenly, the arrogance that had fueled so many petty violations, mailbox measurements, lawn length, unauthorized flower beds, began to wilt under public scrutiny. I hadn't meant to start a movement, but apparently, I had. Meanwhile, Karen had gone silent. She withdrew from public life after the scandal broke wide. Her lawyer issued a bland statement about misunderstandings and intentions to improve community spaces, but no one was buying it. The video footage of her laughing about just calling them squatters was too damning. Online, memes flourished. A photo of her face with the caption, "When you try to steal an island and end up evicted from your career." Another of me stepping out of the helicopter. Plot twist, he owned the HOA too. And then, the most shared clip of all. The moment she asked, "Who are you?" Followed by my reply, "Just someone who doesn't like bullies." Millions watched it. TikTok, Twitter, YouTube. It spread like wildfire. I was getting emails from strangers, letters from people thanking me. One woman wrote, My HOA fined me $500 for planting vegetables in my backyard. Thank you for standing up to their kind. You're a legend. I didn't reply, but I smiled. I hadn't set out to be a legend. I just protected what was mine, in silence, with precision, and with dignity. Then came the unexpected visit. One afternoon, as I was walking along the shoreline of the island, barefoot in the warm sand, I saw a small boat approaching. At first, I thought it was one of the nature tour guides, but then I recognized the man inside, Gregory Alton. He was the former vice president of the Seabreeze Hills HOA, a man who, from what I knew, was more spineless than malicious. He wore khaki shorts, a wrinkled polo, and an expression that screamed, "I hate being here, but I need to talk." He docked, climbed out slowly, and approached with his hands raised. "I come in peace," he said. I raised an eyebrow. He chuckled nervously. I wanted to apologize for everything." "Why now?" I asked. He shifted awkwardly. "Honestly, you scared the hell out of all of us. Karen told us you were some squatter with a fake claim, said the land was just sitting there ready to be cleaned up. And you believed her." "I did," he admitted, "until you landed in a helicopter and bought our building out from under us." I didn't say anything. I just let him keep talking. "Look, she's gone. The HOA board's restructuring. We're bringing in an actual lawyer this time, setting limits, clear boundaries, no more land grabs, no more power trips. You humbled us." "Humbled or frightened?" I asked. "Maybe both," he said. "This," and added more sincerely, "but it was needed." He looked around at the island, at the trees, the clean beach, the families in the distance learning about sea life, and sighed. "You did something beautiful here, more than Karen ever imagined." I nodded once. Then, to his surprise, I extended a hand. Gregory looked at it like it was a snake at first, then slowly shook it. "Pass the message on," I said. "Tell your new board, the island is protected, and it always will be." As he sailed away, I turned back toward the trees, where a group of local school children were standing in a circle, watching a ranger demonstrate how tide pools worked. Their eyes were wide. Their laughter was real. That was what this place was for. Not flags, not fines, not false authority, but learning, wonder, peace. The success of the island transformation didn't go unnoticed for long. By the end of the month, I received a formal invitation from the Coastal Education and Conservation Foundation, a respected regional nonprofit that supported community-run environmental zones. They had seen the viral clips, read the town reports, and visited the island in secret one afternoon. Their letter was short, but full of impact. "We believe Seabreeze Island represents the future of responsible private stewardship. We'd be honored to include it in our registry of protected community learning zones, provided it remains free from commercial development." I agreed instantly. It wasn't just about recognition. It was about preservation. The island had always been a hidden gem, and now it had become a beacon, proof that not all land needed to be developed to be valuable. Soon, we were listed on their website as Seabreeze Island Reserve, privately owned, publicly protected, owned and operated by the ZK Foundation for Coastal Education. Quietly, with no press release, I had created something that would last beyond me. But not everything was peaceful. Not yet. One gray morning, my assistant forwarded me an email marked urgent. It was a legal appeal from Karen's attorney, a last-ditch effort. She was attempting to reverse her charges by claiming that she had been misled by false public records and that her actions were based on a sincere belief the land was unclaimed. It would have been laughable, if not for the boldness of the strategy. In the appeal, she claimed that I had manipulated public land records to appear as owner and used intimidation tactics to remove community members peacefully using an unregistered plot. The gall of it. Even in disgrace, she still thought she could rewrite history. I called Lena, and her voice was like steel. "She's playing a PR game," she said, "trying to spin herself into the victim before the trial. If we stay silent, some of the less informed might actually buy it." "So we don't stay silent," I said. That afternoon, I instructed my media team, the same quiet professionals who handled my business's public affairs, to prepare a simple video montage, aerial footage of the island before the HOA interference. Video of Karen arriving, cutting the lock, planting the sign. Her own words on audio saying she'd call them squatters. The transformation of the island. Kids learning, families exploring, rangers teaching. My single quote at the end, "You don't have to be loud to be right. Sometimes the land speaks for you." The video was released online, not under my name, but through the ZK Foundation's official page. It wasn't confrontational. It was calm. It let the footage do the talking. Within a day, it had over 3 million views. Karen's legal team dropped the appeal 2 days later. Her name was now synonymous with overreach. Karen the Conqueror, some sites called her. Others simply called her the HOA queen who lost her crown. Meanwhile, the island continued to blossom. A group of local artists requested permission to paint a mural on the dock wall, some to hang colorful, something bold, something meaningful. I agreed on one condition. It has to tell the truth. What they created was stunning. The mural began with a tangled mess of red tape and warning signs, all bearing the HOA logo. In the center stood a lone man in shadow, calmly pulling back the vines. On the right side bloomed coral, turtles, smiling children, and an open hand, holding not a fence or a fine, but a small shell. At the bottom, a single phrase: "Silence is not weakness." One evening, standing at the edge of the dock, I looked out at the sea, the waves gentle, the stars beginning to appear. It was strange. In trying to steal something she didn't understand, Karen had ended up giving me something I hadn't expected: a mission, a legacy, a reminder that even quiet people can build loud echoes if they choose the right moment to speak. And when they do, the whole world listens. As summer waned, the island slipped into a rhythm of gentle discovery. School buses arrived on scheduled days, dropping off groups of children excited to escape the classroom. Biologists set up tiny observation camps near the mangroves. Art students painted with ocean breeze in their hair. Retirees volunteered as guides, sharing stories of local flora and fauna. And every now and then, someone would ask the same question: who made this possible? My staff always gave the same answer: a quiet man who liked the sound of waves more than applause. That was enough. But across the bay, echoes of Karen's collapse still drifted through the town. The HOA's influence had withered. Several homeowners filed lawsuits claiming Karen had strong-armed them into unfair payments over the years. Charges that included fabricated violations, mandatory repainting, and unauthorized surveillance fines. One resident even claimed Karen had approved drones to fly over backyards and report pool activity after 10 p.m. Now, with her out of power, the Seabreeze Hills HOA was placed under audit. The audit uncovered a string of misused funds, unapproved hires, and even a side deal where Karen had allowed a developer to build an artificial sandbar near the coast for a personal commission. Her dream of running for city office, dead. Her reputation, burned. And the final nail? The HOA voted unanimously to rename itself. Gone was the Seabreeze Hills HOA. In its place stood the Coastal Residents Council, a name they claimed represented openness and fairness. They even issued an apology letter to me. I didn't respond. Some apologies are best left hanging in the wind, not rejected, not accepted, just acknowledged as too little, too late. One late afternoon, as orange light spilled across the trees, I sat on a wooden bench overlooking the southern cove of the island. There, beside me, sat my grandfather's old leather notebook, worn at the edges, pages full of scribbled wisdom. He used to write down thoughts, lessons, even sketches of the shoreline he loved. I flipped to a random page. In his looping, confident hand, he had written, "If someone believes your silence is weakness, let them keep believing it. Let them charge in, and then show them who built the ground they're standing on." I smiled. It was almost like he'd known this would happen someday. Later that evening, as I walked back toward the guest house built for overnight researchers, a small girl came running up to me. She couldn't have been more than 8. Freckles, a wild ponytail, clutching a hand-drawn map of the island. "Are you the guy who saved the beach?" she asked, breathless. I hesitated, then nodded slowly. She grinned. "Cool, I like it here. I'm going to be a sea turtle doctor when I grow up." I knelt down to her level. "A marine biologist?" "Yeah, that," she said, holding up a sketch of a turtle. "This is Frankie. He's my favorite." I looked at the drawing. It was messy, colorful, joyful. The kind of thing that doesn't follow lines, just feelings. "You'll do great," I told her. "Just promise me one thing." "What?" "Protect what you love, even when no one's watching." She smiled, nodded, and ran off to join her group. I stood there for a moment, letting the breeze brush past me. Karen had tried to carve her name into something she didn't understand. But now, kids like Frankie would leave their mark instead, with drawings, laughter, and wonder. And no one could take that away. The sun was beginning to sink behind the waves, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. The island was quiet now. The last group of students had departed hours ago, leaving behind tiny footprints in the sand, a forgotten paper hat fluttering near a tree, and the fading echoes of laughter that had filled the cove. I stood alone on the edge of the dock, the same dock where, months ago, Karen had tried to plant her banner of conquest. Now, it bore something else entirely. A wooden plaque, etched with care, read, "Seabreeze Island Reserve, a place for peace, protected by the quiet." I brushed my hand over the smooth wood, thinking back to everything this island had been through, and everything it had become. There had been a time when I'd considered tearing it all down, the signs, the banners, the flags she left behind, just to erase the audacity. But now, I left one of them, framed and mounted in the visitor center under the title, "How Not to Lead." It served as a reminder that the loudest voice isn't always right, that control without care is nothing, and that justice, when delivered without malice, can echo longer than revenge ever could. Behind me, the waves whispered against the shore. I turned and walked slowly up the path toward the guest house, past the blooming hibiscus bushes, past the wind chimes someone had hung near the research deck. A new mural had been painted near the trail, fresh this week. It showed a turtle, a girl with freckles, and a quiet man standing beneath a tree, watching over the island, smiling. I didn't need to ask who painted it. I already knew. I paused there, watching the breeze ripple across the leaves. In the distance, across the water, Seabreeze Hills glowed under the golden hour. The town had changed. New leadership, transparent rules, less arrogance, more awareness. No more petty citations or board members playing dictator with measuring tape and drone cameras. Karen? Last I heard, she'd moved 3 towns over. Someone said she was trying to start a neighborhood improvement initiative again. But now, people were watching. The internet never forgets, and she'll never forget the day she tried to steal an island, only to discover it was already owned by the kind of man she'd never prepared to face. I reached the porch, settled into my chair, and let the quiet wrap around me. I didn't need credit. I didn't need applause. This island would speak for itself now. In the giggles of children discovering tide pools, in the sketches taped to the visitor wall, in the soft footsteps of people who came here not to claim, but to learn. My grandfather had once told me, "Some men leave behind empires, others leave behind peace." I looked out over the island I'd protected, the sanctuary I'd rebuilt, not with anger, but with purpose, and I realized I had left both. I had.